This is where we hold them. This is where we fight.
You are now listening to Sweep the Rack podcast featuring Brooklyn Rob and Big Mike.
Rob, what's good, homie?
Yo, when we're not going live on a weekly basis, like when we miss a week, doesn't it feel like a long time since like we've on like before? Like I know we didn't go on because of Memorial Day weekend. And sometimes when we miss a week, I feel like, man, 2 weeks have went by. Like, what have we missed? What have we like? Is there anything going on? And
No, I mean, I felt like last week was a slow week anyway.
It was.
So that was part of my thinking with not going live on Memorial Day weekend, even though I did have company here every day, so I wouldn't have been able to do it anyway. But this week, I would have been fraught to miss the opportunity to come on and chop it up about some various things in the bowling news cycle this week here.
Yeah, for sure. So let's kind of get into it real quick here. Let's see. Graham, so great. So everything's so nice. You got to say it twice. Graham, Jason Albright, happy Sunday. Bowling with Diallo. What's up, man? How's it going? Good to see everybody. We'll wait for some people to come in here. Mike, you didn't get a chance to bowl, huh? Last week or two?
No. Well, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I did bowl. We bowled our last.
That's it.
Yeah, our last night.
The farewell tour.
Yeah, it was sort of like a funeral. Actually, it felt like a wake. Pretty brutal, pretty brutal. We're working on things for next year. I'm not going to say anything publicly on here right now, but we're working on things for next year. So yeah, I just it stinks.
Chuck, what's up, man?
We raffled off a theorem.
Ooh,
and the same guy who won the Roto Grip TNT Infuse in the last raffle won the theorem in this raffle, and people were ultra heated about that. Can I say
salty?
Heated, salty as hell. People were calling for a redraw. I said now my man needs to win a bag in a raffle because he's got all these new balls. But no, it's cool. I had a good time bowling. It's cool that I was able to put something together that anybody came out for, quite frankly. So the fact that over the 2 years we did it at Haslett, that we got as many individual faces in there as we did, because there was never a night where we had 50 guys, but there was always 20, 18, 20, 22, maybe 24 on a good night. There was always that number of people, and a lot of it was new faces cycling in. So overall, I feel like we touched a lot of different people in our time, but I'm not, obviously a lot of them didn't stick with it. There wasn't a lot of building of people who were coming on an every week basis. Which you're going to get anyway if you do something non-committal. But a lot of people like the non-committal aspect of what we were doing. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's cool that people came out at all. I also want to say, like, to all the regulars, and I said this the last night that we were there, to all the regulars, like, you get mad respect to the people that come out every week, majority of weeks to compete on the harder stuff, put their ego aside, bowl on the harder stuff, take it for what it is, learn something about the real side of the game. I got nothing but respect for the people that can say that. So, we'll see where it goes. I don't think we're done yet. Don't stick a fork in us just yet. But yeah, it's looking tough. It's not looking good. The last week, I honestly, I don't really remember what I bowled. I bowled okay. I think I won a card game the last week, and it was a lot. It was like $160 a game for the card game. So I had a good night. I know that. But I'm not 100% sure what I bowled. I think I might have won a doubles pot somewhere along the line too. So yeah, it was, like I said, fun while we were able to do it. And we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, that's wrapped up. I start House League. I was kind of excited, Rob. I thought I started House League tomorrow night. I actually start House League next Monday night on the 10th. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, keep us posted on the Sport League what happens. But
actually, which reminds me, we're gonna have to. I may not be bowling the first week, but if I am, we're gonna have to change the time of our thing next week. I totally forgot about that.
Oh yeah.
When we set that up. So
okay.
we're gonna have to talk about that. Sorry. Little behind the scenes note there for all of our people. I know you did some bowling, Rob.
I've done a lot of bowling actually the last 2 weekends. So I bowled a complete bowling event last was it Sunday? It was Memorial Day weekend. And it was on a 45-foot Dick Weber pattern. And it was about 58 bowlers. And keep in mind, I've bowled 10 games in the last 6 months, Mike. You want to hear my cross? 4 in a pair. You ready? Me, Cortez Shank, Wesley Lowe, and Brianna Cote. Okay? There's no chance I'm even going to come close to that pair. Okay? So I crossed with a really good cross ride. My mom was here because, my dog is recovering from surgery, whatever. So my mom came to the tournament, and I was like, Mom, I'm the worst person on this pair by like far. And she's just like, oh, don't say that. You're just as good. I was like, no, Mom. Like, these guys are on tour. These are national touring pros, all of them, but there was a tough pattern. I couldn't make a spare. I felt like you on league night. I was a disaster. And I'm normally a decent spare shooter. I'm not a great spare shooter, but I'm not as bad as I was. I mean, 10 games in 6 months with an injury will do that to you. Missing 3 6-10s, missing 7 pins, 10 pins. I was all over the place. But long story short, 6 games of qualifying. I managed to pull a big game in game 5. I bowled like 250. The scores were pretty low.
Were you high on the pair that game?
No, Wesley beat me for the pot too. Wesley beat me for the pot. So
they're not letting you shine at all, dog.
Couldn't even win the pot.
Shine a bit.
Couldn't even win the pot. So anyway, I ended up for 6 games minus 72, which actually finished in like 28th out of 58. And I was actually decently happy with that performance, considering I couldn't make a spare. I've bowled 10 games in 6 months, and I beat some really good players, Mike. Like, guys that are like literally some of the best scratch bowlers in this area, and I beat them.
What was the format? 6 games and then a cut, or
no? 6 games a cut, and then they took the top 8 to bowl. I believe it was 1 game matches bracket.
Okay, so if you made every makeable that you left for the day that you missed, would you have made the cut?
I would have been close.
Okay.
I would have been close because I missed the first game. I could think of immediately. I missed 3 spares. I bowled 150 the first game. I missed 3 spares.
All right, so that's 33.
Easy. I missed more spares than that.
How many did you miss the cut by?
I don't remember really what the cut was, to be honest with you, but I think the cut was, I was 72 under. I want to say the cut was like in the maybe 30 to plus 50 range.
Okay, so about 100 pins, 120 pins.
Yeah. So
do you think you missed 10 makeables?
No, I think I was close to maybe 1 or 2, 3 a game, but no, more like 1 or 2 a game. For me, that's a lot,
so
though.
You think it was more than 10?
6 games, maybe possible.
Okay.
Yeah, it was tough. 3 6-10s. I missed 4 of them, I think. Chop 3, missed to the right. It was all over the place. Anyway,
Rob, perfect transition here.
Yeah, so I went to practice this weekend because my arm feels great, actually. I don't really have any problems. I bowled yesterday at Bolero via Linda. And then the summer season pass is it's good for me, 2 free games. So, I bowl 4 games, and I'm literally paying $3 a game now because of the summer pass. I walk into Bolero today, and the guy at the front desk is really nice. I don't think I've ever met him before. He says, "Hey, like, do you want to bowl on Red Square?" I'm like, "Absolutely." He goes, "All
And
right."
one of our listeners here in the chat saying that they're bowling a sweeper on Red Square
Right
right
now.
now as we're live. They're watching us. Lots of pain, misery, and depression here. We know what that's about. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I practiced 4 games on it today at Bolero, and I guess there's some like summer league or something. I guess something happened, whatever, where the pattern was out. I didn't know they even did that Sunday morning. Uh, great pattern to practice on. I mean, it is they're really hard, that pattern. You miss left, it's through the face. You miss right, you miss the head pin. You can't cut it short. I walked in with only 2 balls and a spare ball, so it's not like I was sitting around switching balls consistently, Mike. I was just using 1 ball, like trying to make it work with my hand position. Great. I love practicing on those patterns, Mike. It makes me so much better. It makes me understand when I'm throwing it really bad compared to bowling on a house pattern. When if you throw it kind of half bad, you usually will hit the pocket. On a pattern like Red Square, if you throw it even a touch bad, you're probably not going to strike. Or if you do, it's probably because you went Brooklyn or something. And great. So yeah, I got some really good practice, Mike. I bowled 4 games yesterday, 4 games today. Arm feels good. Just starting to get my footwork back. It's really taking me that long right now to really feel confident to just throw the ball, not really thinking about my arm, working on timing and stuff. But yeah, I'll just keep working, practicing until I start really starting to get to some of the big tournaments, which probably won't be until like late, like summer. I'm not going to enter some big tournaments coming up here anytime soon. So that's my review. But transition here. I put a post up on Facebook today, and it got a lot of people talking, which is kind of cool. Like, I didn't think it was going to get that much chatter. I found an old standing sheet, and this just brings back memories for you and I for sure, of the 1998 Youth Masters in Stonehenge, Ohio. And if anybody doesn't know about this tournament from our era, knows about it if they were any kind of competitive junior bowler. This tournament, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, did we travel together with Bill? Was it me, you, and Bill, or did we just go? Or I don't think so.
Me and you, I drove, and we drove with me, Bill, Paluzik, and Don Pyle in my car, and me and Don Pyle split the driving. One of the things I remember about the ride from the trip is that we pulled over somewhere like right near the end of Pennsylvania so that Pyle could take over driving and I could get some rest because it was getting late at night and he had been sleeping for a little bit. And I get in the passenger seat and I'm trying to go to sleep and like I'm dozing off, and the next thing I hear is him going like ah, and I wake up and I'm like, what's wrong? And he like slams on the brakes and we're already like almost all the way through the toll booth, and he didn't grab the ticket for like the Ohio Turnpike. So like, yeah, I had to like put my foot over on the other side and keep it on the brake. You know, he put the car in park, and then he hopped out, grabbed the ticket, hopped back in, and we were on our way. But yeah, I don't remember you driving out there with us. I remember you driving out there with Bokowski.
And Rich Ambrosino.
Yeah, because you guys were coming from New York, and Pyle lived in Delaware, so it made sense that he came with us. He came up and met us at Bill's house, and we left from Bill's house.
So there's a few really, really funny things about this tournament. I'm going to talk first about the oil pattern that was put out, right? If anybody saw the standing sheet that I posted on my Facebook, and I shared it on our Sweep the Rack group or page, it was by far the hardest tournament that we've ever bowled as a junior. There isn't a harder tournament. And I would go on record saying that tournament and that bowling pattern and those scores, there'll never be a lane pattern in the scores like that ever again in a junior tournament. And what anybody doesn't realize is what happened was, and I don't know if it was by mistake or it wasn't, I'm waiting actually Gary Beck, who was the tournament director responded to my picture saying that he's going to put a separate post explaining the full story on what happened with that lane pattern. Ultimately, though, they oiled that lane pattern about 50 to 55 feet long, right? Which is an absolute, maybe Greg Tack might do something crazy like that. But ultimately, as a junior bowler at 16, 17 years old, you'll never see anything like that ever.
And you're also talking 1998 equipment.
Right.
1998 correct. Levels of knowledge about how to play the lanes and what needs to happen in certain situations. And it was, I mean, it was cool. I'm not going to say it wasn't. And the cream definitely rose to the top. There's no question about that. But I have to say, as a competitor in the event, it was kind of silly.
Oh, it was nuts.
Like while we were bowling, I was somewhat frustrated by the silliness of what we were bowling on and just like what you were being asked to do or what people were trying to do to have success. But
I remember I had a good look. I was jamming it on 20, like jamming it. I was using
everybody who bowled good was just fallback.
Jamming fallbacks
back, try and leave a 5-pin and make your 5-pin.
Make your 5-pin.
So
I was jamming.
One person was plus.
No
qualifying.
No.
Yeah,
Bill was minus.
A girl.
Oh, yes, in the girls division.
Carrie Schwager.
In the girls division, because I didn't see the standings.
For the girls and boys, she was the only person plus for qualifying.
I remember. You're right. I remember.
One of the most impressive things I've ever seen in bowling is her being plus after the qualifying of those games. That tournament was horrendous for me. I bowled horrendously. I mean, I couldn't figure them out. I remember trying to sand a bowling ball between blocks at one point, and I came back out, and the ball that I sanded, I threw it one time, and then it hooked into the left gutter. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, you would think you'd be able to sand the ball and it would help you, and now it's like hooking off the lane. And so yeah, it was frustrating.
I was jamming a negative pin Cuda and a Black Thunder, and I remember the two balls specifically. And I lost in the top. I would believe it was the top 8 to a gentleman who bowled for Kansas, Keeler. In 3 games, he bowled like 230 against me game 2 because I beat him the first game. Anyway, and Bill O'Neill led in the men's division, and he lost. He lost to the big Hawaiian guy. And I had to text him and be like, "Yo, did you see that standing sheet?" Because he'll never respond or like a Facebook post ever.
Right.
So I like, Bill, like, did you see that? And like, brings back memories. Okay, real quick, off the rails story.
What did he lose in the final 4 or final 8?
No, I think he lost the first round because he was
no way. He was deep, bro.
You're right.
He went deep when he lost that match.
Third round,
I think it might have been the final 8. I'm pretty sure it was. And I think that kid went on to the final 4. Yeah. And Brian Hatcher and Rory Kalanquin both won in the final 4. They were in separate matches. They both won. And then Hatcher beat Kalanquin. But that was a reverse of Junior Gold, which had just happened the previous month. The first Junior Gold took place. And Kalanquin beat Brian Hatcher in the final in that. And Hatcher came back in this and beat Kalanquin. I mean, I kind of feel like the summer of '98 was sort of like a historic summer for junior bowling because you have these two major events. I know the Youth Masters had already taken place in previous years.
You're right.
But like it didn't have the numbers and the talent level that it had that year.
No,
I'm sure of that. So
wait, there's a real funny story.
Gold kicking off and
So I got to talk about a non-bowling story that happened to me, you, and Bill during that tournament. This is one of my favorite stories of all time. So at the time, Bill was kind of chunky. You know what I mean? I mean, he wasn't like he is now. He's in a lot better shape. But me, you, and him, the three of us, and Pelusic, right, went to Cracker Barrel, right, between squads, whatever it is. And Bill got a to-go.
You have to explain this first. Hold on. Okay. You have to explain this first. We were East Coast people, okay, and there was a certain swag and style that we had on the East Coast. And part of that swag and style on the East Coast at that time, I'm still like this to this day, is that you didn't wear socks that you could see above your shoes. Okay? It was just a big no-no. Like
was,
in my neighborhood, if you wore socks that came above your sneakers, people were probably going to chase you and beat you up. All right. That's just the way it was. Okay.
Anyway,
So ankle socks always. Now we go out to Ohio and we notice right away that all these kids out there, they have a different style. They're all wearing socks up to their calves, up to their knees. They're wearing like the old school style yellow, green, yellow stripe socks. And I was just, I could not get over this. From the minute we got there, it was like the main thing I took note of was like, dude, what is with these kids out here and the socks, bro? This is crazy.
Socks. So
go ahead.
We go out to eat and we're leaving the restaurant and Bill has a to-go box. Okay. And there's these two kids sitting there outside the restaurant, wherever it is, just kind of hanging out. And one of them says something to Bill in the fact of like,
no, Bill throws his food out.
Oh, that's right.
He throws his leftovers out.
Yes. And the kid said something, right?
This.
The kid
and
said
the
what
kid
he said, like,
walking by, and the kid says something like, "Oh, Fatty doesn't want the leftovers," or something like that. And we all heard him. And like, Bill was the kind of kid, especially at this time, that he was just going to ignore it. He wasn't going to say a word.
That. He's not a confrontation guy. He's not going to fight. But you, on the other hand, saw red.
Yeah, I was like,
oh my god.
Well, I mean, I wasn't a small peanut back then either.
No.
So I didn't throw anything out, but I thought, oh, like who are you talking to?
Yeah, but you saw red, and
I did, and I turned around and I said something to the kid. I said, "Yo, who are you talking to?" And then they just kind of looked at us. They didn't say anything. They just looked at us. And as I walked to the car, I got more and more angry about it. Like, oh yeah, like you want to make a comment to us? Like, okay. So yeah, I don't want to get into specifics here because people are gonna Yeah, I'm not getting into specifics, but let's just say that I handled that.
It was wild.
I handled that.
You did.
Right?
You did.
I let them know that if they had something to say, I gave them every opportunity to say it to our face, and I let them know that if they wanted to say something, I was gonna respond in due order to that.
And
so
sometimes
you gotta stick up for your boy, bro.
They saw a ghost. It looked like they saw a ghost, Mike.
Bill was too nice of a guy. He's too nice of a kid. Like we grew up in the same place, but we grew up very differently. Like I'll just tell a story to the people. I don't get into my personal life here a lot, but I will say this. I grew up in a household where I was taught that you fight. Okay, if somebody says something to you, you punch them in the face and you ask questions later. All right. Hit first. I'm telling you, the best advice my dad ever gave me in fighting was hit first and hit hard. And that's it. And like, I grew up in an environment like that. When I got bullied at school, my dad showed up to the bus stop and made me fight the bullies. Okay, like that's how it was. The first few fist fights I got into in my life were prompted by my dad telling me, "No, you're going to fight this kid. Line up and fight this kid." So. I just, like I said, I as an adult, I've had to find different ways to resolve my issues and deal with my anger about things. But for a long time in my life, even as a young adult, Rob, and you talk about this story, there's stories out there in college bowling too. Those stories exist as well. Where, I was very quick to get into it with people.
Yeah, but like the thing is, like me and you were in that same kind of like mentality, right? Because where I grew up, right? I didn't grow up in that kind of household, but I grew up in how to defend myself and going to New York City, right? So me and you are the only ones really like, all right, Mike, let's roll, right? Palooza and Bill were like, they didn't want any part of this, right? And me and you were like, all right, we're gonna take care of this. Let's do it.
Yeah, but they knew from being around me that it wasn't going to be needed anyway.
No,
like, all you were going to have to do is just stand there and make sure that they don't gang up on me.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's one of my favorite stories of that tournament because obviously we go way back with a lot of these guys, and it was just cool to see names and people getting tagged. And I can't wait for Gary Beck to come out with exactly what happened with that lane pattern. I'll be interested to see because till this day, man, it's one of the hardest things I've ever bowled on.
The JBT showed out big time in that tournament.
Oh yeah, we had a
That's
ton of
I
people.
Remember. I remember
match play was nice too.
I laid an egg, but Bill bowled great. You bowled great. I remember Ryan Snyder bowling great. I remember Bokowski bowling good that week. I remember Tommy Haig making the cut. I just remember like people, Mike Flanagan and his crew of people from out in the Midwest, they went to that tournament. I remember them like recognizing like, oh, these dudes from the JBT, like they're for real. Like these guys.
It was awesome. I missed those tournaments, and I wish I can go back and do it all over again.
Well,
with the
what was awesome about it was that we were all behind each other, right? Like all of us, whether you were good friends with somebody or not, you were friendly enough with them that if they were in it and you were not, because you were affiliated through the JBTs and that level of competition, you wanted to see them win for your organization, to give cred to your organization, you know.
It was awesome.
And
it was hype. It was
It was great. It was great. I mean, that's why I said I feel like summer of '98, man, like huge summer for youth bowling. You know, like it jumped off right around that time. And I mean, these events have been running since then, and yeah, they've gotten bigger, and some people would say better, some people would say worse, but you know, they've gotten bigger and done some big things. I mean, years after we bowled the Youth Masters, they had a finals in Grand Central Station and Gary Beck gave away $250,000 in scholarships from that event. So like, to me, what we were in that was all part of it. But yeah, you go through that list, Rob, and it reads like a who's who of junior, collegiate, and regional professional bowling at at that time and the years after. So
yeah, wild. Good times though, man. I love reminiscing sometimes in the show. We haven't done a good junior bowling JBT reminisce in a while. We used to do them all the time years ago in the show. We always used to see people popping in.
Speaking of which, I got a follow from Lee Vanderhoff.
Oh yeah, he's been a friend. Yeah, he's a JBT legend.
Man, that's a big follow for me, bro. If you bowled JBTs in the mid '90s, you know what a big follow that is for me. The general, son.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, Mike. Let's talk a little bit about the article that released, and you were spotlighted a little bit in that article. I know you had some quotes. You talked to the gentleman who did the article. So, do you want to like get into like your experience?
So he reached out to us at the Sweep the Rack email, and I just happened to see the email, and I got back to him, and we started to talk a little bit. He told me he was doing this article, and I didn't really know what to think of it. But I wasn't opposed to talking to him or having a conversation with him. And we talked on the phone. And when we spoke on the phone, he actually told me that somebody, I forget who he said, but he said somebody that he spoke to said, oh, you need to talk to these guys from this podcast, Sweep the Rack, because they will be willing to talk openly about Bolero and its impact on bowling. So, I explained to him what our background is and league bowlers, bowl at Bolero, and then he asked me if he could come out to the Tuesday night thing at Haslett, and I told him, yeah, if you want to come and hang out, come hang out. So he came out one night and hung out for a bit, and he not only talked to me, he talked to other people there as well, just to kind of get a learn a little bit about bowling. See it from our perspective, from the competitive bowlers' perspective, and what we thought of Bolero. And I didn't talk to him much between. He hit me back once or twice just to clarify a few things, and then at the last week he reached out and said, "Yeah, I just want to let you know, like the article is going to be going live. Here it is. Take a look. Feel free to read it." And yeah, I read it, and I mean, I think there's a lot to talk about here in terms of what the article says. But before we get into the more serious stuff, I'm infatuated with the picture that he paints of me in the article. I mean, you read the article and you'd think I'm some like underground bowling gambling guru type, and that's not the case at all.
I just thought Tony Soprano, like that was my first like thought, like with the cigar, like gambling.
Which I take as a huge compliment.
Huge compliment, man. Who doesn't want to be Tony Soprano? I mean, come on, you know what I mean?
So yeah, like I thought that part was interesting, but at the same time, I thought he did a good job of getting across what I was trying to explain to him about Bolero, and how what we see on our end is poor treatment of the competitive bowler, right, to sum it up. And I gave him examples, and we talked, and, I pointed out various things to him. And people that were there that night, like Steph, shout to Steph, what's good, man, had their own stories and own points. And I talked a little bit about other experiences I had with Bolero. And Greg Tack was there that night. Greg Tack, talked about running tournaments in Bolero and some of the better experiences that he's had there. So, the article came out. I gave it a read. I sent it to you. Obviously it's been blowing up a little bit throughout the bowling community. But once it came out and I read that Jeff was quoted in it, and I read that Parker was quoted, I'll be honest, I felt a lot better about that, just because I know Rickles wouldn't be involved with something that's questionable by any stretch of the imagination.
Wow.
So
sorry, I got to read this comment. Skid Hook Roll says, does that make Rob Chris Moltisanti? God, no, I hope not, man. I don't want to be Chris Moltisanti. I don't really know who I would want to be.
No, make some Silvio Dante.
No, I'm not your side.
This
ain't how it's gonna roll. No.
Okay.
Anyway,
Johnny Sack. He's Johnny Sack. How's that? King of New York.
I'll take Paulie Walnuts. I'll take Paulie. Paulie was great.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about in this article, so I don't know where you want to start.
Yeah, but just to see that those guys were quoted in it.
Right.
I know that Rickles isn't going to get involved in something that he doesn't think is on the up and up. So yeah, that definitely made me feel good. But yeah, it's listen, I appreciate whoever reached out to the author and told them that they should contact us. I mean, clearly that whoever that is has
real quick
has a high opinion of what we do here, which always surprises me. But
which is the first thing I want to get into because of them reaching out to the author and then saying to them, look, you got to get a hold of these guys because we're not afraid to talk about like real topics in the bowling world, regardless, right? Like, 85 to 90% of the shit we do on this show is off the rails, and we have a good time and we have fun. And then maybe the 10% is like real talk, bowling talk, maybe a bigger percentage of that sometimes. But like the one thing that really stood out to me in this article was the fact that there wasn't a lot of people that were willing to speak up against Bolero, and I shouldn't say against Bolero, because there could be a lot of positives experiences like Greg Tack has. They just didn't want to speak in general about Bolero, good or bad.
Well, I got to say, if somebody says they don't want to speak about something or a company, 9 times out of 10, I'm taking that in a negative context.
Right. And I'm thinking more on the fact where, like, if you're a PBA pro, you're probably going to stay away from this, right, at all costs, which makes our podcast that much better because we could speak about this kind of stuff. And some of the other podcasts that have, PBA pros, they got to stay away from topics like this, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of rules against them speaking up against the Bolero because obviously they own the PBA and whatnot. I just thought it was really interesting that not a lot of people wanted to speak up against it or about it. Makes me wonder, like, what is so, I guess, scary for people to speak up against Bolero or speak about it in their experiences or their real experiences.
If you're asking that and you want me to speculate on an answer, I would say that it's because in a lot of instances they're becoming sort of the only game in town, and you're kind of forced to work with them. So if they think that you're speaking negatively about their product and their company, are they really going to be willing to work with you going forward? Take any organization you want, right? I'm not even going to name a name. Okay, take a league, whatever league you want, right? Big scratch, or biggest handicap league in any county.
Okay, and
they currently bowl at a Bolero center, right? If they know they're the only game in town, right, and they have this guy or small group of people, right, who are constantly bashing the center, the management for whatever the bevy of issues that we see, right? Do you think that Bolero's really wants to put up with that? No. Like, to me, they would find a way to get that person out, get rid of that person. In fact, Rob, a while back, we had a guest on the show who had major issues with Bolero, and had contacted their upper management, didn't like the way he was treated by the upper management. Like, it reminds me a lot of that, where if you become a thorn in their side, they could very easily shut you out of their centers and therefore shut you out of bowling in a general area.
Right. Which is, even for someone like me, is a little bit scary, because if Bolero banned me all of a sudden tomorrow because of stuff like we said on the show, I don't even know where I would be able to go bowl, which is the challenge for bowlers these days. I have Boleros all across me, around me in a radius. In order for me to find a non-Bolero center now, I'd have to probably drive 45 minutes.
Okay.
You know, any tournaments or any leagues, I wouldn't be able to bowl. And that's the problem. It's essentially kind of a monopoly, right? Like, if your bowling centers have you by the balls because they know you're not going to drive 45 minutes, they can charge you and absorb an amount to practice. They don't, have to keep the facilities clean. They don't have to do a lot of what issues that are talked about in this article, right?
Here's another aspect of this that I thought about. You're a bowling center owner, right? You get interviewed for this article. You stick a flag in the ground against Bolero, okay? You're probably surrounded by Bolero centers wherever you're at, right? And, listen, this is business. I mean, I'm sure they're trying to recruit leagues from these mom and pop centers left and right anyway. Who's to say that Bolero wouldn't put on the heavy press and say, oh, you know what? We're trying to acquire this bowling center here. We're going to go after their business. We're going to offer a great deal to their leagues, lineage that they can't refuse. We're going to shut this center down, and then we're going to buy it. I mean, that's, some people would say that's business, but some people might say, oh, that's personal vendetta too. But I don't. I think Bolero is such a big company at this point that I'm not even sure that would be in their realm or on their radar, so to speak. But again, when I thought about this, of why wouldn't people want to speak on this issue, I guess from their perspective, it might be something that they could imagine, like, hey, I don't want to poke the bear type situation.
Yeah. I do feel like this issue, though, in general, because I did read a lot of the comments on the article, that there's some people who have good experiences with their Boleros in their area, right? So this isn't a complete, like, corporate problem, in my opinion. I think it's just sometimes if you have a good manager that manages a Bolero, you might have a better experience, right, than a lot of other people. I do feel like the cleaning, the cleanliness of the bowling centers and a lot of other issues are common, though, across the higher percentages of the Bolero.
Well, I mean, let's put into a sentence or two. Let's encapsulate what the article was saying.
Go ahead.
In terms of Bolero, because it talked about a lot of other things. It presented a lot of
huge
other
article.
sides.
It's a good article.
But to me, if I'm encapsulating the article in a sentence or two, the article, and again, in reference to Bolero, was saying that Bolero is a company that's being run just for profit of its investors. And that the model that it's being run by is a model that's been seen before in other businesses, and it has failed in numerous other major examples.
Could I read
the end of that is that the author was saying that perhaps this is the plan of the owners of Bolero, the investors of Bolero, and what is going to pan out over the next however many years, whether that's quickly, let's say 5 years, or takes more time, 20 years. And they're doing this by driving down cost, driving up profits, acquiring a lot of real estate, buying a lot of centers and writing off the debt, and therefore having more revenue from what they're acquiring. Okay. And that is the model, again, that we talked about, that I referenced earlier, that they've seen before and that has not been successful and has not worked. Is that a fair summary of the article?
It is. I want to read a post by one of our top fans in our Facebook group, because I think this was a very, very great post. He summed it up very well, and I want to read it because I think there's a lot we could take and a lot of concerns, okay, that I take from this post. So Augie DeBleek Jr., thank you for that post, because I read it and kind of almost brought a chill up my spine, because obviously we grew up bowling, and this could be a real big deal later on when bowling.
Fred's in the chat saying it.
Yeah. So he wrote, Bolero didn't put itself out on the stock market. It used an SPAC to do so, an investment vehicle with a notoriously poor track record for success. 80%, he thinks, in an attempt to circumvent things like due diligence and paperwork. Second, Bolero exists as a Wall Street play, show quarterly growth at any cost. The only way they've done that substantially is buying up lots of alleys and ignoring the huge debt load that's incurring. Buying up lots of real estate in a down market with high interest rates, and then forcing the centers to pay rent to their new owner's real estate shell company is a well-known tactic that leads to massive failures. See the deaths of Sears, Red Lobster, Toys R Us, etc. The big question now is, when Bolero falls, what will the fate of all those bowling centers be? Sadly, the vast majority of them will only make money back for the bankrupt company as real estate plays, not bowling centers. We could lose hundreds of bowling centers in one fell swoop. And on top of that, I'm going to add, not only do you lose all those bowling centers, Mike, but you also lose the PBA Tour, right? So great post. I think this, when I read it, I was like, holy crap, like this is scary to read. And I think the article has kind of this this was a good summary of a little bit of what the article was saying. But Mike, like, I mean, thoughts on that? Like, crazy, right? Like,
I mean, listen, I don't know exactly what I said in our episode when Bolero bought the PBA and Bolero started taking over all these centers, and as we've talked about this over the years, but I'll be clear for both of us, I think here, we've been straight from the beginning that this is not a good thing, and that this is not going to have a good ending, and I stand by that. I still feel that way. I think that this article and these ideas that it presents are evidence of a lot of what we, thought, but didn't really know how it would develop.
And then the lawsuits on top of that, which is like a pylon, right?
Right. Which was another made. That's why I said, like, if we're talking about what the article was saying about Bolero, go there, right? Because there were other aspects like lawsuits against Bolero, what Bolero's doing to the competitive bowling scene, or how it's changing the model of what competitive bowling looks like to a large degree. So yeah, really concerning.
It is.
My question is, what kind of time frame? Right? What kind of time frame? Like do these things take to happen? Because when you think about a business like Sears or Toys R Us or Red Lobster, like those businesses have been around for decades. So if we're talking 20 years, then all right, I think that it's viable that something else happens or another solution comes up or whatever it may be. But if we're talking 5 years, then yeah, we're in serious trouble. But you know what? If I try and look at it from a silver linings perspective, maybe it's what bowling needs, Rob. Maybe it's what bowling needs. Like maybe bowling needs a company like Bolero to fail. And I definitely don't want to see the PBA fail. But what I mean in that is, like, maybe if all these bowling centers close, and to compete in a league or a tournament becomes way more exclusive of an opportunity, because there's just not as many bowling centers and not as many lanes, not as many spots available. Maybe that would be a good thing for the game. maybe it'd be a good thing if there's a waiting list for every league, in every center, in every area, because it's more exclusive and there's just not as much opportunity to do it.
If I was a proprietor right now and I own centers, I would be waiting for this to happen and swoop in and try to. I mean, I'm sure you can get a lot of bowling centers at discount rates, right?
Right.
I would probably be waiting for that to happen, rebuy back maybe a bowling alley you sold to them. Could you imagine that? Like, you sold Bolero your center, and then 10 years later, you're able to get it back at a huge substantial discount.
Right. It would actually probably be a really good time for people like you or me or Bill or anybody who really knows bowling and the bowling community to take advantage of that opportunity, try and scoop up a bowling center or two and run it the way you want to run it.
Mike,
that's what I'm saying. Could it push the reset button?
Maybe. I don't want to even I don't know if I even want to find out, to be honest with you.
Me either, bro. I hear you.
Let me tell you something. If me and you or me or whoever ran a bowling center as a bowler and understanding customers and customer service, I could drive Bolero out of business. If I own the bowling center across the street from Bolero, which I've seen that in Michigan where there was two bowling centers right across the street from each other in Bay City. Literally, when bowling was really in its heyday in Detroit. I mean, everyone was bowling, so you could have two bowling centers. If I had a bowling center across the street from Bolero, Mike, not only would my center be clean, it would be lit up. There would be not as expensive games, ample seating, tables, right? Every bowlers would have tables. We would have affordable pricing, clean customer service.
I was going to say steep discounts for the dedicated league bowlers, tournaments,
right? And then open play, right?
Charge the Jane Doe and John Doe who walk in the door, who are there once a year, twice a year. Charge them whatever you need to charge them, whatever you want to charge them, whatever they're willing to pay. But for the league bowlers, there should be steep discounts. I'm talking 50, 60% off whatever the posted price is. A beer is $6 for Jane Doe, John Doe. It's $2.50 for our league bowler. You're saving that much by joining a league here and bowling with us over the regular course of time. We value our league bowlers here, But and
Jimmy
certainly doesn't seem like brain surgery.
Yeah, it says these aren't new ideas, and you're right. I mean, this is right. This is common sense in a way, right? The problem is
you also got to fancy the place up too, right? You have to go in and you got to revamp the place. You got to remodel the place because that's part of the appeal of the Boleros. Yeah. So if you can do that, and I do believe that you can make the place competitive to a Bolero regardless of where it's at. But
yeah, and I think there's bowling centers that are doing that, right? I'm not saying they're not, right? There's still sole-owned proprietors, mom-pop shop businesses that bowling centers that are doing this, and I think we all need to try to support those centers, right, as much as we can, and keep them doing it. If they're running a center the right way and they're giving league bowlers the right discounts and they're treating the league bowlers the right way, then you have to support it, bring leagues there, but then you have other areas in the country where all you're stuck with is Boleros. And they have you by the balls, Mike. I mean, I'm just talking personal experience being in Scottsdale. That's right where I'm at right now. I have to go 30 minutes, 40 minutes to find a mom pop shop bowling center that probably would be better for the bowlers, but I'm not going to drive 40 minutes to go practice either. That's crazy. Anyway, so this article definitely, I think, opened up a little bit of can of worms. I think it definitely is a topic of conversation, an article that every bowler who's serious about bowling, who's in, league bowling, tournament bowling, they need to read this and understand really what's going on out there. And I think it's important, honestly.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Rob, what do you want to move on to?
We can talk a little bit of PWBA action that's been going on.
Team Singapore killing people.
Lee Jameson winning twice. Cherry Tan winning. The Singapore ladies are really, really doing it right now.
These ladies do not play games.
They don't, and
they fly halfway around the world. You're here. You're here to compete.
Yep. And the Music City Classic right now in Smyrna is going on as we speak. They're in round 2 of match play. I don't really have the standings right now, but wait, I do. Give me a minute. I'm actually in the middle of watching it. I have it on my other monitor here. Good to see the PWBA in full swing. Bet Rivers, I'm still waiting for an option to bet here. I know you got some kind of ticket in. You messaged me. You let me know. But I need some PWBA. I need some action. I'm with the PBA out. I'm struggling right now. Sundays aren't the same. There was nothing going on this Sunday. We'll be able to love to bet some of these matches going on, Mike.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I haven't. I've been really busy, and I haven't caught much of the PWBA action just yet. But I'm obviously staying on top of it through social media and whatnot. But clearly, Team Singapore running things.
Look, Kevin Hebert writes, Jane has the calmest approach and delivery I've ever seen. And that's what is so impressive about these ladies is this is shot making at its best. I mean, really, it's pure shot making at like its highest form. I did get a chance to watch the stepladder when Jane won. I mean, it was impressive what she did in that final match, Mike. She was like a machine. Like it was just like bam, or as Emil would say, bang, bang. Real quick, Mike. Shannon Pluhowski leading, right? Shocker. Brianna Cote second. Lauren Russo third. Stephanie Johnson fourth. And Gongoria fifth. And Jordan Richard knocking on the door right now at sixth.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you get a chance, the PWBA right now, they're streaming on Bowl TV. Is Brianna leading? Because I don't see that right now, unless they haven't posted the scores. So, Mark, you're ahead of me right now. But hey, Brianna crossed to me. She's throwing the ball great. I talked to her, threw a little bit of a nugget out. She wants to come on. So we'll have Brianna on sooner than later in the next few weeks. Talk some women bowling. But yeah. Other than that, it's really all I got, Mike.
All right, let's give the people what they want, son.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Mike, do you want to go? Go ahead.
I'm coming at one of the big dogs. Coming at one of the big dogs, my worst of the week this week. I'm giving my worst of the week to Roto Grip. Roto Grip social media, Facebook page. Post that I saw a couple days back.
Okay.
Says, now I gotta show the post. Okay.
Okay. Oh, I see that.
What in good Lord's name is going on here, son?
I don't know.
And the post says,
is that Schlemmer? That's Schlemmer dressed up.
As the post says, Roto Mouse is at the BPAA Hall of Fame extravaganza in Vegas. I don't know. I don't get it. You lost me. I'm sorry. Worst of the week.
Worst of the week goes to Roto Grip and dressing up in costumes and not Halloween, I guess. I don't know.
Is that Chris Schlemmer in the mouse outfit? I thought it was just a random person in the mouse outfit.
No, that's Schlemmer.
I was trying to figure out what's the connection between Roto Grip and the mouse.
That's Schlemmer. I don't know. I could reach out to him and ask him. It's cosplay, Mike. Trust me, Mike doesn't even know probably what the word cosplay means.
Oh, yes, I do. Please, son.
I'm just saying,
I've read more this month than you've read in the last 5 years.
No. I mean, like, what I'm talking about is like you couldn't give two shits about cosplay, and don't expect to see Mike ever dressed up in any kind of.
I'd just be surprised if there's Mickey Mouse cosplay going on in the bowling community, in the high level bowling community.
So Mark says, Mark Buffa. Is it Buffa? I think it's Buffa. A lot of teams will dress up at extravaganza.
Okay. All right. Some context.
Mark, what's good, man? By the way, man, I see Mark every once in a while popping in.
Context is important. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
All right. My guy goes, this is a while back. I saved this. John Kindig on the Hammer Bowling Facebook group. Okay. Does anyone know what layout Tommy Jones uses? We have a house that I bowl at. The only oils from 12 to 12 and 12 out is dry. Everything I have is drilled for smooth and continuous. I see his ball play in the oil, get wide, and still make it back. That's what I'm looking for. Doesn't matter whether it's asymmetrical or symmetrical. Thanks. John.
All right, we don't need comment on this. Just roll the graphic. My goodness,
Lord.
The bowling community's in trouble, bro. I'm just saying.
Bolero, we're in trouble. The community, we're in trouble. All kinds of
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying in general. Rob, final thoughts. My final thought is PBA Tour Finals coming up this weekend, and our boys in it, and we're going to be able to bet on it. And now DraftKings is offering odds on bowling. We're going to discuss that in a future episode in detail. It's in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and Sweep the Rack's going to be in the building, bro.
Nice.
So let's go. We're going to be there checking it out, betting. I'll be on Twitter. Check us out. Final thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, so we did originally, we're supposed to go live next Monday because we have a big first-time guest coming on. And now I find out.
I'm a doofus and forgot I'm starting. But I might not have to bowl. So give me one day. Give me one day to try to work that out, and I'll see where we're at.
Okay. So as of now,
next week at some point, we got a big guest coming.
We have a big first-time
guest. Big first-time guest coming.
Yeah, so, and I'm not going to say it yet until we've confirmed the date and time.
We don't put it out there.
Once I've confirmed the date and time, and I confirm the guest again is good, then I'll put out some social media.
We're doing it for the people.
We're doing it for the people. I'm excited about it. That's my final thought, Mike.
All right, Rob.
Like and subscribe.
Hit us up. Sweep the Rack at Gmail. Hit us up on social media. He's at Brooklyn Rob 11. I'm at 215th. We will talk to everybody probably next Sunday or next Tuesday, I'm imagining.
Whenever we figure out the guest.
Something like that, right? We'll be no politics on this show, Phil Placco. Phil Placco says Trump, ? No politics here, Phil. Sorry, this is a politics-free zone, bro. Sorry. We don't do that over here at Sweep the Rack. We only do bowling.
Yeah.
So listen, we'll be in touch about when our next show is. Until then, email us, hit us up on social media. Rob, it's always a good time. I'll see you next week. See everybody next week. Peace.
Later.
You are now listening to Sweep the Rack podcast featuring Brooklyn.